Now turning to the war in Gaza, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh has accused Israel of deliberately starving Gazans in the territory's north and said Hamas was ready to continue to fight. In a televised speech, Haniyeh also said the group, which is widely designated a terrorist organization, was showing flexibility in negotiations with Israel. Haniyeh called on Palestinians to march to the Al-Aqsa mosque in Jerusalem on the first day of Ramadan next week. While Israel has said it would allow limited prayers there with security restrictions, there are concerns the call could set the stage for possible clashes. Let's cross over now to our DW correspondent Tania Krämer in Jerusalem. Tania, Ismail Haniyeh mentioned that Hamas is, quote, flexible in the ceasefire negotiations. What does he mean by that?
Well, I mean, you have to see this obviously in the context of these negotiations that are currently underway between Israel, Hamas, mediated by Qatar and Egypt and other actors. Now, flexibility, this is what we don't know exactly how flexible Israel and Hamas are when it comes to certain sticking points. There's talk about, the potential ratio, how many hostages will be released for how many Palestinian prisoners that are held in Israeli jails, for example. There's talk about, and of course all the details are not yet really known, there's talk about that the first phase could see the release of 40 Israeli hostages that are still being held in Gaza by Hamas in exchange for those Palestinian prisoners. But another sticking point has been always that Hamas wants to see a full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza and a full end or a full stop to hostilities, an end to the war. And this has been described, answered by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as delusional demands. So, it is still to see how flexible both sides are, and depending on what sources you're looking at, we could be very close to a deal or very far away.
Now let's talk about the military operation still going on in Gaza. What's the current situation on the ground between the Israel Defense Forces and Hamas?
Well, I mean, the war is going on, and, throughout the Gaza Strip, there's every day, every night reported airstrikes and fighting going on, also in Gaza City in recent days. But the main focus was in the past weeks on the south, of course, on Khan Yunis, although the Israeli army has said they're completing this. And there is, of course, now the looming threat by Israel to also attack Rafah. This, of course, is the southernmost city in Gaza, where over 1.4 million people are sheltering. They have been told in the beginning of the war to move further south. Now they're in the south. And of course, there has been a lot of criticism leveled by the international community in the wake of this announcement to also have an offensive on Rafah. Now, Israel says they have eliminated several battalions of Hamas. There in some areas it's more urban warfare still going on. But they need to go into Rafah, as they say, to eliminate 4 of the battalions, and to say, as Prime Minister Netanyahu keeps on saying, to remove Hamas completely from power.
Now, the World Food Programme says a quarter of Gazans currently face starvation. What are the current prospects for the civilians trapped in the south? Briefly, if you can.
Well, we've seen in the past 2 days there have been humanitarian aid, mainly medical supplies and food, have been dropped from planes on the southern, mainly the coastal area. Some were actually falling. You could see that on video, falling into the sea. But they were mainly destined to go to reach the population in the south and the center of Gaza. But what's the main concern for humanitarian aid organizations and for the United Nations operating there is actually northern Gaza, because access is extremely difficult. United Nations have said that they haven't had a convoy to Gaza since the end, to the northern part of Gaza since the end of January, and we heard in several reports now being made by the World Food Programme, but also by the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, saying that a quarter of the population could be in risk of famine or starvation, also saying that especially for children under the age of 2 in northern Gaza, 1 out of 6 children is under threat of severe malnutrition. Now, Israel has said they're letting in enough trucks and aid into Gaza, but it's the fault of the UN for not distributing the aid faster and better, whereas the United Nations are saying there are all kind of obstacles also inside, from the insecurity, from the fighting going on, but also from looting, also from desperate people wanting, to get to this humanitarian aid, and also the high prices on the black market.
Tania Krämer in Jerusalem, thank you.